Okay, we're going to tie the beadhead pheasant tail. I've already slipped a bead on the hook here. This is a size 10 hook. It's a little larger than normal you don't use fly, but it does make it easier to see things on the camera lens. Normally you tie this fly down to a size 14 all the way down to a size 20 to imitate mayflies for trout. It's probably one of the most reliable trout patterns there are out there. Nymph patterns, that is. We're going to start by wrapping our thread down to the base of the hook here, down to the beginning of the bend, and we're going to use our main material here is the pheasant tail, and we want the long fibers off the main stem of the pheasant tail, and I'm going to cut maybe 6 or 8 of those off and use this fine tapered tips as the tail of our fly, and we're going to make that about the length of the shank and tie it in right there at the beginning of the bend so that those form a nice tail off the back of our fly. At this point I'm going to tie in some fine copper wire right next to and up along the shank from where we tied in the pheasant tail fibers for the tail. And I'm going to wind the thread all the way back up to behind the bead of the hook, the bead of the fly. Now take the rest of this pheasant tail fiber and slowly start working from the tail forward and wrap in one big group, one layer in front of the next, all the way up the fly over your wraps. Now what this does is it forms the abdomen of the fly. Once you get up towards the bead, go and tie off those fibers. You can see the further I went, the less material I have, so the closer you get to the eye of the hook, the tougher it gets to wrap those materials. But once you get them there, go ahead and lock them down with a few thread wraps and cut off the tag ends, wrap up any loose ends. Now we're going to take this piece of copper wire that we tied in before, and we're going to wrap it in the opposite direction that we just tied that clump of pheasant tail. What this is going to do is add some flash to the fly, but it's also, because we're wrapping it in the opposite direction, it's also going to lock down all those pheasant fibers. You know, when you're fishing a fly like this and banging it around on the rock, sometimes the teeth of the fish can mar it up a little bit and it can start to fall apart, but that copper wire can actually hold the fly together a little bit better and maybe let you fish a little bit longer with it. Now we're going to take another chunk of pheasant tail fibers. This time you can reach down towards the bottom portion of the feather where they're a little shorter. Again, click off maybe 6 or 7 or 8 pieces, and we're going to tie that in right here. You can see this time I've let those points fall backward, similar to how we tied in the tail. And this is going to be our wing case in a second. Now we're going to take a piece of peacock curl, and we're going to tie this in. This is going to be the thorax. Tie a single strand in and slowly wind this around in the same manner we wrapped those pheasant tails earlier. And this is going to add some flash fly again. Looks like this piece fell a little short, so I'm going to add one more. Tie it in behind the, I'll cut off, I can see, tie it in behind the bead. And when you wrap this, the fibers of the fly, which are green and have almost a purple hue sometimes in the light, they really stand out. This is probably one of the best fish attracting materials out there, natural peacock curl. That's going to form the rest of our body, and you can see that's adding a lot of flash, making it look a little buggy. Now we're going to take that wing case and fold it over the top, that portion of pheasant tail that we tied in just before the peacock. We're going to fold that over the top and lash it down with 3 or 4 wraps right behind the bead head. You can see it makes those legs all crazy. Here's the trick. Separate these leftover pieces into even groups on both sides of the fly and hold them back. You can kind of pin them back along the body, and then finish your fly off with a few wraps right behind the eye, kind of build up some thread. And what that does is it pushes those legs backwards so that when you go to finish the fly, you can trim them off and they look like legs. Now I'm going to take my whip finish tool. You can use half hitches if you prefer. I'm just going to finish the fly with a couple half hitches. Clip my thread. Once you give this fly a little head cement, be ready to fish. That's the beadhead pheasant tail.